Hello，
Hello.
开始了。
Okay. Are we in GC now?
Yeah, we are
But-
in the GC.
But is this because it's not? Oh, I see.
I share my screen.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Today we are gonna talk about callbacks and promises. So, to understand the callbacks, that basically, because we have to first understand that JavaScript is a single thread event loop language that is different from the any other backend language like Ruby or Python. PHP, yeah. So this async fashion is for people who come from different languages. So let's take a look at this. So we write callbacks for waiting input-output as network request, and wait for reading and writing from desk or user input. Okay. So there are basically two ways programs wait for I/O. One is blocking and non-blocking. Okay, so we write JavaScript with non-blocking language. It has the advantage that it's high concurrency with low memory consumption. So, is there any questions for concurrency? And
can you have some example about the concurrency?
okay, I actually have some example right below here, so we just keep going and we'll see the example.
Okay.
So all modern browsers that support the JavaScript for this event loop approach. So we can see an obvious example that if we block so if we block in JavaScript, the obvious example is that alert that you will block your browser that you can do any other things. Okay. So let's figure out what is callback exactly. So callbacks, this is from callbackhell.com. It explains callbacks are just the name of convention for using JavaScript functions. It's just the functions that return some results, but not now, but later. So when we wait for the callback return something, like download things, reading files, talking to database, etc. So in this talk, we have this event loop talk. Let's take a look at this example, and we will understand event loop more clear. I believe we can take a look at it. Oh, OK， 应该要录这边。
这边也在录，对不对？
对。
And then calling console.log, and then at the bottom, if I open up the console here, we can see what happens. So we request foo.com.
Take a look at this part.
Do all the slides because it was a total pain in the ass in Keynote to do it. So instead, I took the much easier route. If you hadn't kind of realized, like, well, this is all in Keynote. There's like, I don't know how, like 500 animation steps in this whole deck. So hopefully Zero is like deferring that execution of clear before it can push the callback onto the stack. So your stack is going to continue. Does that make sense? Everyone?
Okay, so we can take a look at this video that it explains stack, task, and event loop.
With me? Awesome. Okay, so now we can see how this works with probably one of the first encounters you would have had with async stuff, which is when for some weird reason someone says, oh, you have to call set timeout 0. Like, okay, you want me to run the function in 0 time. Why would I wrap it in a set timeout? Like the first time you come across this, if you're anything like me, you're like, okay, well I sort of see that it's doing something, but I don't really know why. And the reason is, generally, if you're trying to defer something until the stack is clear, right? So we know, looking at this, if you've written JavaScript, that we're just going to see the same result. We're going to see hi, we're going to see JS-conf.eu, and then there is going to somehow appear at the end. So running it, we can see how that happens. Console.log hi, set timeout 0. Now that's going to complete immediately and push the callback onto the queue. But remember what I said about the event loop. It has to wait until the stack is clear before it can push the callback onto the stack. So your stack is going to continue to run, right? Your main file is going to continue to run, console.log JS-conf.eu, and clear. Now that we're clear, the event loop can kick in, run your callback. So that's like an example of set timeout 0 is like deferring that execution of code for whatever reason to the end of the stack, or until the stack is clear.
Okay, so the concept is that we basically execute, we push all our functions to the stack, and it runs in the order, and then the async functions will push into the task, and it callbacks to the stack. So that's why we call it callback. And it will wait for the stack is clear, and then we execute the callback. Okay. So basically, all the callbacks are asynchronous. So how do we write callbacks in JavaScript? Let's take a look at some example. Okay. So yeah, the callbacks have these pros and cons, because it's you can basically do everything with callbacks, but you gotta deal with callback how, and which we will explain later. Yeah, so it's kind of difficult for you to do things in parallel, and you cannot use try and catch for a while in callbacks, and error handling is difficult, and readability is a little bit difficult as well. So take a look. Yeah, so I have these concurrency and parallelism for a little bit explanation. So concurrency is how application handle multiple tasks, but parallelism is application how handle one task. Like it can make a task some subtasks, or it just handle the one task. So concurrency and parallelism is different concept. Okay. Is there any questions?
No.
Okay.
Can you see somebody left comments?
Oh, somebody left comment?
I don't know. Let me check.
Okay.
Hi. Oh, but one people. Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Welcome to join us.
Welcome. Okay. So let's keep going. Okay. So this part is not really about async stuffs, but since we talk about callbacks, so I will introduce a little bit about functional programming, because it's JavaScript, the nature, it can assign a function to a variable that makes it a higher order function. So callbacks are also called higher order functions. So we use this feature to do some functional programming. So this is not about async stuff, but we can talk about it a little bit. So these are few little features we it's like a paradigm. Functional programming is a paradigm that is avoiding shared data, avoiding mutable data and side effects. So it's more declarative rather than imperative, and application state flow through pure functions. Okay, so let's take a little bit example. So because we can assign a function to a variable, so basically functions are values. There are not too many languages can do this. So this is JavaScript's advantage. Yes. So we try to refactor this snippet of code into this. It's a more functional style that you make this code to do only one thing for it, and the advantage for it to do this is that reusable, composable, and you can even use exterior library to combine with your code. So functional style. Okay, so let's go back to which one? Oh yeah, we'll talk about this. So let's go back to this asynchronous code that so obviously this code won't work. The name will not get a result from this because
will be undefined.
Yeah, it will be undefined. Because this is a synchronous get get from the API, and the callback here assign the name property to name, but since it's a synchronous code here, so it will finish this code in the future. We don't know when it will finish, so this name here will return on the file. Is that clear?
Actually, one more way to say is it's like when it's the code here, you see the line here. This get method actually is on, like, for example, normal JavaScript process will be line by line. So after get through this line of code, then it will immediately not wait the response back from the server, even whatever is true or false or no data. So you will automatically assign almost at the same time, then process other code as well. So we can't guarantee that the data that we return from the server is already there or not. So that's why we have to use callback
or promises.
Promise, yeah.
Because in this fashion, it looks more like synchronous code.
Yeah, we have to use promise or something to make sure.
To make sure the data already come back.
Yeah.
Already get it data. Okay. So this example is for chain tasks and parallelism with callbacks. This is a classic callback how that, because you have to make sure you get the data from server, so you have to next it your callbacks into another callback. That way you can sure that you get the data from server, but then it's difficult to chain tasks and do parallelism. And even we didn't do error handling in this case because it would be just too much. So let's take next one. So this is another way for doing parallelism, because in this way, because we want to take 3 files and calculate the total number of the bytes of the file. So we don't really have to do it one by one. So we wanna just do it once, but then you have to like calculate the number of finished every time. So you can still do it. So which way you prefer, you can choose it. But we will introduce promise. It offers the then and catch. They might add some convenience for you to handle this kind of asynchronous codes. Okay. So yeah, this is previous code that add error case handling. So you can see it's very complex.
Check every time.
Yes, check every time. So you have to check and then original code and check. Yeah. Okay. So it's even just minimal error handling, just console log, didn't do anything, and it looks like very complex. Okay. So we have the readability issues of callbacks, and then so that's why we introduce promises. Okay. So promises like this. It's an object that represents the value will be returned in the future when the operation finished. it will return a value. So it promises you that it will have a
Something back.
something back, either fail or success. Okay, so it has some features. It's easy training and has better error handling, and it's more easier for us to compose with this fashion. Okay, so promises like this, it always has the .then, helper, and catch. So we have then and catch. So every time when promise success, you will return the resolved data to the .then helper. So we can deal with our success data. We can attach and callback or do any other thing in .then helper. Okay. So this is an example that is better because we can do training. So this has better readability. You don't have nested functions. You can see it's more like sequential in order to handle all these functions. That like when you finish this promise, it returns another promise. So when this promise resolved, then it can pass the return resolved data into another .then. Okay. So this is this example that we set timeout, wait for 1 second, and if it fails, it promise. So this is more easier for us to train promises than callback. Okay. Is there any other question?
Has meeting started already?
Yes.
Yes. Have a question? Just ask.
But
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think we have to check sometimes the chat room. If somebody asks something, then we will, in the end, before the meeting ends, we will try to reply most of the question that you guys ask.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll switch back.
Yeah, switch. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So we keep going to the flow control. In this fashion, we can easily combine sequential and parallel tasks to create advanced flows like this, like this snippet of code. So this snippet code will be difficult if we deal with it in callback fashion. So basically, we have to wait for this promise finish because we need all the user IDs. So when these requests finish, we got all the friends IDs in the next .then, and then we can map all the friends IDs and return another promise. So in this fashion, we can even use promise.o to handle all the promises once. We put all the promises into an array and process them at once. So this is the flow that user login and we fetch the friends of user and return the promise. So contain all the friends and fetch all the friends detail information. Okay.
The line enter discussion being held, but it's quiet. What's the reason?
So I enter discussion.
声音
哦，没有声音吗 ？Really？
感觉应该有声音。
啊，就是哎，
没有。
喂，
If you want to talk, you have to manually switch on the mic because I set the room setting is default. When you join the room, the meeting room, it will automatically mute the microphone. But if you want to ask something or
but
just open the mic manually.
can you hear us?
I think everyone can hear us, but okay, yeah. We'll check the chat room later, so we continue.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about error handling. So it offers more readability to when it comes to catch. So every exception will bubble up when there's an error in .n. So catch will catch the error, and you can do the error handling in catch. Okay. So this is a catch. Yes, catch. Okay. Let's move on. So we will talk a little bit about generate functions, but not too much because generated functions itself is not really about asynchronous. It's more about to
Pause.
just pause. Yeah, just pause the function to make it more like synchronous. Yeah. So with this fashion, we can pause the function to deal with some asynchronous.
Star.
Yeah, we add a star to make it a generated function. And yield. So
the place you want to stop, in front it you just add yard.
Yes. So if you want to start result, you just add yield, and then you will wait until it resolve.
Finish.
Yes, until you finish. Okay. But we might want to talk more about async await. So in this fashion, it looks more like synchronous code, and we don't have to use callback in promise to make it more like any other like Python or Ruby. Okay. So we make promise and make it use promise and async await at the same time. Let's take the snippet code. So we can use for while try catch, and it's more readable, sequential, and let's take some code example. So yeah, we first put the function.
Define the function as async.
Yeah, we define a function as async. We put async in front of function, and then it's a async function. And when we put so we await this. This must be a promise. So we await this promise to resolve. So this looks like the await must put in a function that is defined as a async function. Well, this will work only because it's a async function, and it must be a promise after await. So in this snippet code, we can use try catch to deal with async functions. Okay. So this code is that an example that it's
Animate.
Yeah, it's animate, and it's more easier for us to pause it when in front of the animate. It would be very difficult for us to do it in callback function. Okay. So promises. So it has some advantages. We can just use pure promises, or we can use it as plus syncing await, and we can also use promise.o. Okay. So this is previous code that's refactored as a async await fashion. Makes it more looks like a synchronous code. Okay. So yeah. So you gotta add await, and be careful, don't do too much sequential.
Not too much. Wait.
Yes, exactly. Not too much await, because it's still a async code. Not even though it looks like sync code, but it's async function. And so all this is kind of important, because when you use map or filter, it will return a promise, so it might not meet your expect. Okay. Well, yeah. So you can use it in any other modern browsers. Yeah.
Latest version.
Yes. And I also put some references here, so you can check, and it's from some videos and a website recommends from Alex. All right. So, any questions?
Cherry.
Okay. Okay, I'll pass the link here.
In the chat room. Javascript share.
You're welcome.
Oh. Okay.
What? Okay, we'll end this room. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah. If you have more questions, just go to the guitar. I should again because if you guys not from guitar, and you can go to Guitar Wizard Amigos Institute and /program to join us and ask something there, and we'll reply soon, I think. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Later on, we will cut, modify some videos and put in some snippets, I think, and we'll put it on our YouTube channel. Yeah, then we'll share. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.